but it's
Yeah. Well, I'll do this after you. Okay. Cool, Mark. Yep.
all right. Well, thanks, Laura. Glad to speak with you today on some exciting capabilities we have in Autonomous Database regarding generative AI and natural language to SQL and AI vector search. I know many of you, perhaps all. I'm Mark Hornick, a Senior Director with Oracle Machine Learning Product Management. So we'll get right into the content. Oracle Standard Safe Harbor. I'll touch on a few roadmap items that you might find interesting. So we're going to start with Select AI, which allows you to build apps and query your database using natural language with the help of large language models. And so our goal, of course, is to make it easier for you to get answers from your data. And one approach is using natural language to query your data, where you don't need to necessarily understand SQL to get value from that. Now, with Select AI, Autonomous Database manages the query process using AI to help produce your answer. And although first released for Autonomous Database serverless and then dedicated, we have non-autonomous databases on the roadmap. And of course, this follows Oracle's cloud-first approach to that. Now, to use Select AI, if you haven't given it a try yet, on the SQL command line, you simply write Select AI and your natural language question or prompt, as is shown on the right. Now, to help the LLM generate a SQL query that will run on your data, the database automatically augments your prompt with metadata about your tables in the schema before sending your request to the LLM. And this can be a significant productivity gain for SQL experts, as well as an enabler for less skilled SQL users, especially when developing AI-enhanced applications. So what makes Select AI unique? Well, it provides deep integration with Oracle SQL and leverages database security and authentication. And not only does it use the LLM to generate SQL, but you can chat directly with the LLM to generate code, maybe draft an email or explain a query. And you also have a range of AI providers to choose from, and you can easily switch LLMs on the fly to compare or even integrate results. Now, because it's available from SQL and PL/SQL, you can easily use Select AI with tools like Apex, your favorite SQL IDEs, and database applications. Now, of course, to enable this, Autonomous Database provides a PL/SQL package called DBMS Cloud AI. And as I showed before, you can use a standard select statement with the keyword AI, an action, and your prompt. So an action such as run SQL returns the SQL result that you can manipulate as any other row set, and that's the default behavior. But you can also opt to see the generated query, return the result itself as a natural language text that was generated by the LLM, or get an explanation of what the query is doing. And the chat action allows you to get back results as you would directly from the LLM. Now, in addition to the freestyle SQL command line, you can also invoke Select AI using the generate function, which can be useful for embedding in some applications. Here we're using the narrate action to return the total number of customers. You see on the bottom the natural language description of the total number of customers. And here, we're using the PL/SQL block to return the generated query that was provided by the prompt. And this is one through generate. You could run this query yourself once it's produced. Now, Select AI also supports conversation mode. And by conversation, we mean that you can ask a question, review the result, and follow up with more questions, perhaps to refine the results. And this is similar to functionality in other popular chatbots. As a simple example, if we have a movie streaming service database, we might ask, what are our total streams? And then ask to break that out by movie genre, perhaps at a customer segment, and then keep the top customer segments and so on. Now, on the right, we're showing an example of the AI profile. This is an object that describes your AI provider. Here we're enabling the conversation mode and lists the schema and tables you want considered for your prompt. And these guide, the Select AI behavior. Okay, let me just. So we start here with the Select AI, start with our total streams. And then we break that out by genre. So a very straightforward demo of this functionality. Next, in our conversation, we want to add the customer segment. And so that's going to add that as well. Then we'll say, let's keep the top 5 customer segments and genres by total views and include a rank in the result. And finally, let's explain the generated SQL. So at the top, we have the SQL query that was generated to support this. And then it has the explanation that follows step by step what actually took place. All right. So, I've mentioned developing applications using chat interaction with an LLM, but here's a scenario where we could combine machine learning and generative AI. We might use a machine learning churn model to predict customers likely to cancel their subscription to our movie streaming service. And then we'll reach out to those predicted churners with LLM generated emails. And that can contain, customized offers or specific movie recommendations. To do this, we get context from our autonomous database instance, perhaps by querying data we have on our customers, like their age and interests. And this helps the LLM recommend movies the user might like and generate a compelling personalized promotion to keep them from canceling their subscription. Now, through prompt engineering, we give specific instructions to the LLM along with customer-specific data to get back a targeted response. Now, just to highlight a few of our roadmap items, we have a number of enhancements planned for Select AI, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them here. The first, to automatically augment your prompt with enterprise-specific data from vector databases, we're introducing support for retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And this will include, of course, Oracle 23AI AI vector search, which I'll be talking about in a moment, and initially the third-party quadrant vector database. So this feature will also support a fully managed vector index pipeline for new data. Another feature is synthetic data generation. And this supports test dev scenarios by leveraging the LLM to generate realistic test data. One could say we're actually using the hallucination of LLMs, which is generally thought of as a bad thing, but we're using it to our advantage here to generate fake data. For example, you may create a metadata clone and then auto-generate data after cloning. And this enables generating the schema and populating that schema with data. And the goal is to make this as simple, scalable, and repeatable as possible. Now, another feature is AI for admins. And this is having the objective to simplify database administration using AI, whether for troubleshooting SQL performance, identifying application bottlenecks, or monitoring database resources. We'll be extending the set of LLM AI providers as well, such as Gemini, maybe AWS Bedrock, Claude, and Hugging Face. Lastly, though, as I mentioned at the outset, we have a lot of interest for supporting non-ADB databases, and so look for updates for that certainly in the coming year. If you want to get started with Select AI, you can certainly do that using some of the resources here. Maybe take it for a test drive. There's some blogs and live labs that give you a good step-by-step introduction. And so we can make these slides available to you as well. So now I'll just move on to AI vector search. And AI vector search, of course, enables new capabilities in 23AI database for finding content based on semantics. You've probably heard a lot about vectors in 23AI, so I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to that in case you haven't caught up with that yet. Vectors in AI represent the semantics of unstructured data like text, images, video, and audio. And so a vector is really, at its simplest, just a sequence of numbers. And these numbers are called dimensions, and they capture important semantic aspects of the data. Now, if we were to think about this in human terms, we might think of maybe we have a dog and we say it got his features like its breed, fur color, height, and weight. But in AI, vectors are actually quite abstract, and the dimensions are used to compute numeric distances and to find similar content. Now, to make this a little more concrete, consider we have two short vectors. And as I mentioned, the main use of vectors is to determine how close one vector is to another. And this is done through a distance calculation. There are many ways that one can compute distances, but the one you're probably most familiar with is Euclidean distance. And there's a formula here for how that might be calculated. Of course, we're looking at this for 4 dimensions, but in practice, this is really a high n-dimensional space where n is often in the hundreds or thousands of dimensions. Now, when it comes to creating vectors, we talk in terms of generating vector embeddings using an embedding model, or what's also called a transformer, to convert data into vectors. Now here we have a set of text documents where the document ID, vector, and corresponding text is stored directly in a table. And similarly, we can have a set of images and do the same. So now it's time to use this information to retrieve similar results. So what does the search process look like at a high level? Well, we start with the object we're looking for, whether that's text, image, or something else. We use an embedding model to generate an embedding vector, the same embedding model that was used to generate the vectors in our database. And then using this vector, we compare it to the vectors in the database to find those that are most similar. And as you might imagine, doing this comparison on every vector, which could include millions or billions of vectors, could be slow. And this is addressed using sophisticated indexes for approximate search results. And then using the vector ID matches, we can retrieve the corresponding data objects. Now, of course, as you've heard, AI vector search was released with Oracle Database 23AI. And one of the benefits of being implemented in the database is that we can now have vector similarity search performed in queries right alongside your standard structured business data about customers and products. And this is enabled through a few features. One, the new vector data type for storing vector embeddings, new SQL syntax and functions that easily express similarity search, and we'll take a look at a few of those, and approximate search indexes that are packaged and tuned for high performance and quality. And of course, because we're part of the converged Oracle database, we can handle vector and other workloads like machine learning, graph analytics, and spatial analytics, among others, in the same database. Now, AI vector search covers the full vector database pipeline. We can generate vector embeddings from unstructured data, store those vectors in table columns using the vector data type, build approximate vector indexes on vector columns to improve performance, then search on those vector columns using SQL, and of course integrate with mission critical enterprise capabilities using frameworks like LangChain, as well as the PL/SQL package DBMS vector chain. But let's take an example, document similarity search using embeddings in a query. So our objective is to find the top 10 job posts for a software engineer in New York, ordered by relevance of the resume to the job description. And we have our resume document on the left, and we submit that to our sentence transformer, basically a text transformer or embedding model, to produce a vector embedding. And then we search for similar vectors and their corresponding documents. What does the code look like that enables this? Well, first of all, we create a set of vector embeddings using a transformer. For that, we're going to create a table, which we'll call job post vector table, that includes columns from our external job post table, like the ID, the job title, and the location. But more importantly, we want to create an embedding for each job post using a transformer model. In this case, it'll be a sentence transformer. And we're going to store this in a column called embedding. We can then create a vector index on our embedding column. And now, with our job post vector table ready, we can select the top 10 IDs and job posts that match. Now, we use the structured content to first filter the data, but then we ask, what's the vector distance between each of the embeddings and the vector? And we want that result in ascending order to get the least vector distances, or stated another way, the most similar job posts. It's important to note that we're able to combine the filtering of database table rows right alongside vector search, all in the same query. But how did we get this embedding model into the database in the first place to use as a kind of a first-class database object? Well, this is where Oracle Machine Learning comes in. We use OML to import the embedding model into the database. You can do this conveniently using the Python or SQL APIs of OML. OML for Pi provides a Python interface to generate a portable ONNX format model directly from the Hugging Face repository. And then you can save this model to the database to use with the in-database ONNX runtime. It's one of the new things that we've introduced with 23AI. Using PL/SQL, you can use an ONNX format model that resides in object storage. And then you can use the OML DBMS data mining package to import the ONNX format model to the database. Here we're giving it the name sentence transformer and indicating that it's an embedding model. And this greatly simplifies your ability to leverage transformer models with the AI vector search functionality. So, we've seen how vectors enable AI vector search, but we should talk about how we use these in combination with large language models. Now, LLMs are trained on a broad range of general public knowledge from the internet, as you've likely heard. And this data is taken at a snapshot in time. But in contrast, vector databases can be created on private enterprise data that contains the latest information and also can be updated very frequently, easily, and cheaply. So, while we can improve LLMs by fine-tuning them with enterprise-specific data, that often means using that potentially sensitive data for LLM training, which, as we've heard, can be revealed through creative prompting in certain circumstances. So fine-tuning, can also be expensive and time-consuming in its own right. Vector databases, then, are allowing us to avoid having to train LLMs on sensitive enterprise data. And we know that LLMs are also susceptible to hallucination, as commented earlier, where we're using that to our advantage in Select AI. But they can produce inaccurate results, especially if they don't have enough context. And this can cause problems when trying to get factual or up-to-date information. So how does the vector database help here? Well, one way is by helping us retrieve this enterprise-specific content to augment our prompt that we're providing to the LLM. And this allows the LLM then to take advantage of the most up-to-date information and as a result, reduce hallucinations. And this process is called retrieval augmented generation or RAG. Now, vector databases also allow us to reduce the volume of content that we provide to the LLM by retrieving the most relevant content. You may know that LLMs come with a token limit, right? The number of words they can process and return at one time. So for example, GPT-4 ranged from 8K to 32K tokens, and GPT-4o increased to a large 128K. But Claude 3 even went further to a whopping 200,000 token limit, and these are being adjusted all the time. But for other models, we can run up against token limits more quickly. And so you typically don't want to just throw all of the information you have on a topic at an LLM because it's also more costly than to process all that information. Now, with Oracle AI Vector Search, you get these vector database benefits, but in combination with your business data in a single database. So you can also easily combine this business data and vector data for more sophisticated LLM-based solutions like RAG. There's no need to move data between the relational database and a separate vector database, and this of course avoids cost, complexity, and security risks. But when we couple this with Oracle's Converged database, we're also being able to leverage vectors in combination with machine learning, spatial graph, and other pre-integrated technologies. And going forward, I can say, from the machine learning standpoint, we're going to be exposing the vector data type to allow that to be one of the predictor columns and also one of the output or predicted columns as well. So there will be greater interoperability between the vector search and Oracle machine learning. And you can also use this in combination with popular frameworks like LangChain that help you create applications using LLMs. So let's take a specific example that brings these capabilities together to build an LLM-based chatbot with enterprise-specific content. As we noted, RAG is great for reducing hallucinations and LLMs from giving us more useful responses. So in our example, this chatbot is intended to help employees answer corporate policy questions. And we might type, what's the policy? But the question is, what's the policy of what? We need a chat history. And so we were talking about 401ks. So then we can produce an enhanced prompt, which is essentially the prompts from the current conversation. And I'm just going to simplify that to what's my corporate 401k policy. But now with this information, we can feed that to the embedding model. We'll submit each prompt or even parts of the prompt, depending on how long it is, to generate specific embeddings. And then we can perform a similarity search using those embeddings within the vector database. Once we have the vectors that match, we know what documents they came from, and we can fetch the corresponding documents using the ID match from the relational database. From this, we'll then produce an augmented prompt that includes our enhanced question, the policy details, the scenario examples, basically relevant documents, our enterprise database that are current. And then we feed that to the LLM. And this content, of course, is much smaller than if we simply handed the LLM everything that we know about 401ks. And finally, we get back a response. Now, of course, there's a lot going on here. And if we were dealing with a separate vector database, we'd have a separate component to interact with. But with the functionality in the database, we do all of this in the same component, using the embedding model through the database.
Like Monday, hold on.
Sorry, is there a question? No? Okay, thank you. So then, we can use the embedding model through the database, store the vectors as well as the content in the database, and then perform the search using a SQL. And using a new feature in Select AI, even this process will be greatly simplified as we introduce Select AI with RAG support. So you can go from your natural language conversation to a response while Select AI handles the vector database search and the prompt augmentation. So we're making it easier and easier to realize these types of use cases. Now, as a final example, I just want to illustrate combining machine learning, AI vector search, and Select AI to do perhaps targeted marketing. This use case involves customer segments. And the goal is really to generate a custom email with product offerings that are most relevant to their customer segment. So first, we're going to start off with machine learning. We're going to use the clustering technique to identify customer segments, which customers are most similar to which others. And that's going to give us a description of each of these customer segments. And we're going to leverage demographic data and psychographic data, as you see on the left: age, income, pets, interests, and the like. And for each cluster centroid definition, basically the thing that represents that cluster or that segment, we use the Select AI chat action to get a textual description of the segment, along with any additional commentary from the LLM. And that's what's described in the center section, where we've provided to the LLM this cluster centroid just with the predictors and their corresponding values that are describing the centroid, the cluster, or the segment. And then the LLM can add some color to that as well. What do we know about people in this group? So we have a nice textual description of that. Now, using the customer segment description, we can use AI vector search to find matching product descriptions. And then we can provide the customer segment description, selected products, and any additional customer specific information like the person's name to enable the LLM to generate a personalized email that's encouraging the customer to check out the recommended products. Now, each of these have APIs available from the database that enable an integrated, seamless solution. And so, we've looked at two key technologies: Select AI for natural language to SQL generation and LLM interaction from SQL, which of course is available today in autonomous database, and we'll be making it available for non-autonomous databases as well. And then the AI vector search, which is available in 23AI. So that's what I have at the moment for you. And thanks for your attention. And I'm happy to take any other questions. if we have time.
Thank you, Mark. So I am now on the phone, which is great because I barely heard a lot of that. But for everyone else, do you have any questions for Mark?
Mark, I actually do. I was
Okay.
just wondering, well, first, thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering the Onyx models that we can generate, right? Can we use other tools besides OML for Pi?
Well, I mean, in terms of producing the Onyx models, so one thing I didn't mention from the OML perspective is we also have the ability to take classification, regression, and clustering models in Onyx format and import those into the database to use that same Onyx runtime. So it's not limited only to the embedding models. So yes, you can have these models that are built elsewhere. And in the case of the Onyx representation, you can incorporate those into the database to be used with the like the other in-database models.
Okay, so but for generating the Onyx files, we have to use OML for Pi. Would that be correct?
When you say generating the Onyx files, no, the idea is that you can specify an Onyx format model, and then that model, you can import it. What we do some pre-processing and post-processing, and there are some templates that we provide through OML for Pi to make that easier. But you'll notice in the slide where I introduced that, there were two approaches that you could leverage. One was through OML for Pi, where we reached out to Hugging Face, say, and we could import directly there, and it will do some bundling of the pre and post-processing steps. But then there was also the DBMS data mining procedure that allows you to take an Onyx format bundle that you've produced perhaps any place else and import that into the database. So no, you do not have to go through OML for Pi to make that happen.
Okay, and the reason why I kind of asked was because I was trying to import a Hugging Face model that was not included in what you have as templates.
Mm-hmm.
And I used, I think, a different tool to try and generate the export files.
Okay.
And that didn't work.
If you send me some of the details, just drop me an email with what you attempted to do, and I can run that by our dev team because they are certainly interested in any issues that customers, people like yourself, have in using that technology. So maybe there's something simple that we can address for you.
Okay, great. I'll get in touch with you. Thanks.
Okay.
So I ran the poll. Yeah, Mark. So I ran the poll. I'm going to share the results in a minute. If anyone hasn't, if you could respond, that would be great. But the first result I see is that someone has a GenAI solution in production. So would anyone like to comment on what they've got in production and share with Mark?
Laura, can you see who that is?
No, I can't see who it is. Is it
Okay, then I won't admit that I put it in there.
Okay, you got to share what you're doing.
So it's really just, I mean, it is in production. It's a real simple use case around generating a weekly revenue summary from our chief revenue officer. He was spending like 3 or 4 hours a week collecting information essentially from our warehouse. I mean, just through various OEC dashboards. So we kind of consolidated what he was looking at and ran the model against this view of data, and we create, I mean, it's kind of funny, we used an Apex app to let him tune his mood and like who his audience is, and so I can create like motivational ones or angry ones, or I've done it like using a rap voice. Like it's kind of just fun stuff. But I mean, really, that was the overall solution. But the goal really is to generate insights at like a regional level, at a market level, even down to sales teams and that type of thing. So like we're trying to give people idea. When you do like a overall, like kind of like this is the state of the company.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of actionable items. for someone at the market, especially if they're doing well. They just ignore it. So we're trying to use this model to then easily create personalized versions of like, here's your regional outlook, here's your market outlook, here's your sales team outlook. So that's where we're headed.
Great. Did you encounter any challenges in that, in realizing the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure the tech behind it had a ton of challenges. I think it worked generally well.
Good.
I think the challenge was out of the box. There was a lot of the tools themselves natively are very developer oriented. You know, the UIs are, you know, the tuning of someone's voice, let's say, had like 0 to 4,000. I forgot, it was like PNN. I don't know. I can't remember what it was. And I said, we have to make this like way easier. We have to kind of like, a chief revenue officer is not gonna, I'm not gonna explain to him what a P or an N is. And if you drag the thing this way or that way, you're gonna get like slightly nuanced changes to your messaging. So that was probably the biggest challenge, is trying to translate some of those inputs into like a human interface that would make sense to someone.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Derek.
To Laura for calling out that I said I had something in production.
Yeah, I didn't know it was you, honestly. I should have done more interesting. Okay, so the rest of it, as probably expected, most people are just started investigating, if you can see the results there. And, you know, also as expected, the use cases. Is that what you would have expected, Mark, there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're finding that, you know, a lot of people are just getting their feet wet with it, and others are starting to explore it. You know, some are trying out the live labs that we have for the Oracle technology, and so it's a great time to, you know, get involved with it and see what you might be able to benefit from.
Yeah, and number 3, what would assist you? The biggest thing is more demos and ideas of use cases. So live labs, maybe more demos. Human expertise is always a thing. Okay, so that's the survey. Thanks very much for participating in that. And Mark, thank you for presenting and bailing me out with the
No problem, my pleasure.
Right, so now here's the agenda for today. So we've got through Mark. We've got some feedback on that, thanks a lot. Quick GL update, and then we will do the ADB review, 20 minutes with Steve, who will present. And I don't think we'll take the ADB feedback. I've got a short survey which will run, but it won't take much feedback. And then we have a Data Studio feedback section where we have the team here to ask you questions about that. So we ran a Global Leaders Workshop in Chicago last month, which was well attended, very good. And we are having another couple probably in Boston and Atlanta prior to the end of the year. And, you know, any suggestions also on other cities would be great, let me know. We have our Cloud World event coming up on September 12th. If you're going to Cloud World, please stay till the very end. And I know that the housing is just until the Wednesday night. So all you have to do is phone the hotel and get an extension to include the Thursday night if you can stay. It would be great to see you. We have our winter meeting set. It will be at the Biltmore Hotel, which is actually where we had the first North America Global Leaders meeting. It's a pretty nice hotel, and that's at the last week in January. So please let me know if you can come along to that. The registration page is ready. Again, I'm pounding on this. We really need these reviews. So please take a screenshot of this and please give us an autonomous database review. It can be ATP, ADW, or there's also a category, autonomous database. So I don't know how that works, but yeah, there's 3 categories there. So back to today, that was quick. Thank you so much, everyone. And our next meetings, I'll just say this now, we will have our next ADB Champions meeting in August. Thereafter, we'll hold them bi-monthly. Maria Colgan has kindly offered to also give us updates bi-monthly on the database and converged database features. So we'll do that every second month. And then we will be doing a more general modern data platform and AI innovation series monthly as well, with some of the people from other teams in the database. So that will be monthly, so I'll let you know about that. So you'll all be invited to them. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Steve.
Okay.
Thank
I need you to stop sharing. Okay. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, hello everybody again. Steve Patterson here. Work on the autonomous database product management team. Usually every month or so we go through all the new features that were released that month. This time we're going to do a little different. We'll do a couple of features that were released this month, but also kind of more of a recap of what's come over the last 12 months and kind of what are the big features. You know, they let me choose, so kind of I picked things that I found interesting from an architectural standpoint as well as a development standpoint, which are kind of more of my backgrounds of architecture and development. So I picked the things that I thought were kind of interesting. You might find other ones, and obviously there's lots and lots of new things out there. So you can always find out about what's available or what's new in our new features documentation, and certainly in the console we put some banners out there for you to see when something's new there in our blogs, as well as the Learning Lounge. We usually cover new features there as well, go into depth on a lot of those. So today, you know, we'll really talk about a couple of things that came in June of 24, as well as things that have come in the last 12 months from a new feature standpoint. It's not everything, you know, it's just kind of ones that I've handpicked out of, you know, what are the really big things. We'll go ahead and get started here. So, you know, just released this month, and we've kind of mentioned this, I think, on previous calls that this was coming, but this is a pretty significant change, I think, from an architectural standpoint. Um, you know, it's something that a lot of customers, internal and external, have asked us about for quite some time. But it's the ability to essentially configure a private endpoint database. So when you provision your database, you set it up on a private endpoint with a virtual cloud network and a subnet and all that. And you know, it's allowing it to say, okay, I can control access to this through my VCN, through my security list, through my network security groups. But very commonly we get a request that, hey, I've got some external users who I need, you know, maybe developers, somebody like that who need to access this. We see this in the world of BI, you know, with Power BI users and things like that, where we've got a private database, but we want to provide public access to specific people as well. So essentially what's happened here is now you can modify your database to have essentially two endpoints, right? A public and a private endpoint. And that allows both the internal people who have access through either VPN or Fast Connect to your VCN to have access to it, but also it gives you a new public host name that users can access from the from the internet as well. So you know, from a security standpoint, it's something that you know you definitely want to consider what the impacts are and be careful when you use it. But it is a very nice way of being able to say, oh, I don't need to build a Bastion server or set up a load balancer. You know, we've got to have a bunch of workarounds we've done over the last year or two to allow this. You know, I've used load balancers, I've used bastions, I've used all kinds of things to be able to access it. You know, so it's a really nice way of being able to access your public or your private endpoint databases from the public internet. So we can take just a real quick look at kind of what that looks like here. You can see I've got a private endpoint database here. It's living on this subnet here. I've got the private subnet associated with it here, so I can, actually see all the things. But now you can see there's a new thing down here called public access, and currently it's disabled. So, really all you have to do to change that is say update network access. You click the little button here, and then it looks like it's a public endpoint database as well. So I can then come in and say, add my IP address, or I can come in and add other rules and things like that as well. Access ACL control rules like from a CIDR standpoint or from a VCN. So, if you're accessing it through a service gateway, you can use the virtual cloud networks, those types of things. If you're accessing it, from a non-VCN, obviously you would need to use the public IP address ranges. So definitely a nice way of being able to allow access to your database that's on a private endpoint. But just, it is an administrative thing to make sure you're making that secure. So definitely give that a try. Second thing that came out this month that I think is a significant architectural enhancement, it's part of a much bigger project of improving the network latency capabilities of autonomous databases in OCI. Really, this is kind of a new TCP option that has kind of come out over the last few years, and we've now enabled this on autonomous database. So this thing called TCP fast open to allow your database client, whether it be JDBC or .NET or SQLNet, all those different parameter options you have to connect, we can start to really squeeze out some of the milliseconds of what I'll call latency on the network. And some applications are really good at handling latency. They do things in large arrays and batches, and can move data very effectively. Other ones, we see applications that try to connect 1,000 times a second, right, where the application is just disconnecting, reconnecting, disconnecting, reconnecting, disconnecting, over and over and over. And if you do that millions of times, milliseconds can make a difference on the overall throughput of an application workload. So, we'll have a number of things coming from behind the scenes, where we're improving the routing inside OCI, but also, we talked about last month about best practices of using the best availability domain, and how to find that information out from the database of where your database is actually located. But now we've got this thing that says, using this fast connect, use TCP fast open equals yes. There's a number of other parameters and prerequisites to this that are important to consider. But yes, we've definitely got some improvements there in the speed. Another update this month is from data transforms. So there was a major update in transforms, lots of new improvements and changes. I think the big ones that I'm most interested in are really the first two here. I know Adrian, we've talked about this in the past. I don't know if you've tried it out yet, but now you can import and export your projects very easily to move it from from one database to another environment. So like moving from test to production. So now you can export and import your projects there. And then as well, now I think kind of bringing it more on par with ODI is the ability to have variables defined within the steps of your workflows and your data flows. So that definitely opens it up to be much more like ODI in parity of its functionality there. So definitely useful there. So a lot of new updates there in transforms this month. Another one that I think is kind of a major improvement over the year. And I've been at Oracle for a very, very, very long time, and I also look at some of our legacy applications, things like e-business suite, other applications that were written years ago. A lot of customers used to use external procedures with C and this XProc capability in the database, where they would call C code from outside the database, process the data, and then put it back into the database from C. Obviously in autonomous, where you don't have access to the operating system, and certainly in a shared serverless architecture, we're not putting your processes on our server, right? So we do have the ability now, and I think it really brings us very close to having similar capabilities to everything on premise, to where you can bring pretty much any application over into autonomous, right? So we can now use this XProc agent to run the code on a VM, and we simply call that from the database. So that really helps kind of bring parity with on-premise architectures as well. I think another really significant feature that came out over the last year is this data sharing capability. We talked about earlier about private endpoints with public access, but data sharing really takes it to a whole other level of kind of a process, orchestrated and regulated and managed process of sharing data between different people, different companies, different regions, things like that. So it's kind of a governed and managed process to do this. And it's all based upon a Delta sharing API. So it's all very standards based, and it works with a lot of different types of clients, whether it be Power BI or the different Azure layers or Tableau. You can use this as a target as well as a source for a lot of things. So I think this is a real significant improvement in the ability for Oracle to certainly interact with a lot of the different tools out there and how they process their data sharing capabilities. So, it allows Autonomous Database to be a share provider, right, where we can send data to Power BI, but we can also be a recipient, right? So if you want to load data from some sort of system that has Delta sharing like Databricks, we can load the data there as well, right? And then certainly from a autonomous to autonomous standpoint, we've got great data sharing capabilities there with our cloud link capabilities. So those are all very significant new features, I think, that have really made a big difference in how people approach Oracle database. As hey, we're locking your data in to the database. Well, no, we're really not. We've got a lot of ways to share your data in an open and standards based format. Um, I think architecturally, this feature called Cloud Tables is, it wasn't a lot of noise made about it, but I think it is a significant improvement in, how people really perceive the Oracle database from an open standpoint, meaning, can we store the data externally to the database, right? And that's not something, we've had external tables for years and things like that, but you were responsible for the files, right? I mean, the database did not manage those in any way, shape, or form. But if you have data that you don't want to store in the database, but you want to treat it like a regular table, there was always kind of this gap there as to how do I do inserts of data into my external table? Well, you couldn't, right? So, but a cloud table really takes us a little bit further here to where, okay, now we can, and it goes into a managed bucket by Autonomous Database. You don't see the files or anything, right? But what we're able to do is do select inserts and updates on a table that's defined as a cloud table, where that data is actually stored in object storage rather than inside the database, right? So it allows you to have kind of a partitioned model of, okay, I've got some data stored in, some data stored outside the database. And there's a lot of customers that have made a lot of changes to their applications over the years to try and move, the low value data out of the database and store it in some other sort of mechanism that's, not very commonly going to be accessed, right? But in this model, it's all integrated and kind of part of the converged database to where you can now, create a table directly stored on object storage and run select inserts and updates and all that against it. So, I think that's a real significant change in the way we've approached cloud databases over the last year. Now this one's a little personal to me, and it applies back into that same last one. But I'm huge about encryption and decryption of all the data, especially for external tables and loading data and things like that. So, when you export data out of the database, when you copy data in, when you have external tables, you can now store that data in object storage as encrypted, right? So, buckets and all that are not always really the most secure things unless your admin is really focused on policies and things like that. So, I've always been very focused on, if you're going to store something in an object storage where everybody can access the bucket, well, it better be encrypted, right? So, having that ability in the database and integrating it all with resource principles and everything, I think is a very significant new feature that makes me feel much more secure and safe, right? Okay, real quick on the next one here, Microsoft Azure, Oracle Database at Azure. I'm sure you all heard that, yes, we now offer Oracle databases inside of Azure. You use Azure credits, but you're using Exadata still. You're still getting the benefits of your bring your own licenses. You're still getting all those benefits of OCI, but it's all running inside of a Microsoft managed infrastructure. You get access to all the different features and functions there, as far as provisioning and things like that. But then you also can use the OCI console and the command line there as well to get the most capabilities out of it. So when we released this, we had it for Exadata, as well as a few others now. So just as of about 6 days ago, we did release Autonomous Database as generally available in Oracle Database at Azure. So if you have an Azure account now, we can get this set up, and then we can now provision autonomous databases directly there. So that's a very significant new feature there. And then kind of sideline to that is that we did also now release or announce a partnership between autonomous database, or between Oracle and Google. So very soon, much like the Azure model where we have Exadata and autonomous database, we can now support Google Cloud as well. So if you're a Google Cloud user, we can do that. All right. Mark covered Select AI in depth. I think it's a significant feature for all Oracle, across the board. So definitely a very important feature. Play with it, use it, learn how some of the LLMs work and how to interact with it. And certainly we're coming out with more capabilities with the RAG augmentation and all other features there. So definitely I'd call it the big marquee feature of the year for sure. And then last but not least, we do offer and have released within the last year 23 AI, right? The overall version of the database, right? But we do offer it on Autonomous today. So you can get a free version of it in the cloud. But, where I see a lot of customers using it, especially internally and externally, is this using this free container image, right? To where you have Autonomous Database running, you get ORDs, you get Apex, you get the APIs, you get database actions, so you can load the data and all that there directly. But it's running on your own hardware. It's running on your own laptop, as an example. So I run it here in the cloud on a little VM here, and you just basically Podman start ADB free, and and now you can see I've got it's a public URL on a VCN, and I can log in and do all the things that I would want to do from a development standpoint, but I don't have to pay an hourly rate or anything like that. I can just very simply come in, and I can do data loading, I can do all the the setup, right? So, but it's definitely using the 23 AI version. So I mean, there's definitely lots we can see and use the different new features there to be able to. Whoops, what did I do here? Oh, I didn't say from. All right. But yeah, so we can definitely take advantage of all the new features inside of 23 AI. We can play with and develop and see what's available out there. Just to kind of get started with it. Very soon we will offer the full paid version, and we'll be able to upgrade your databases. But that's a work in progress, and we're still working on the details on how to get everybody up to 23 AI. But it will be a fully managed process, and there won't be all these things you got to do where you have to do manual processes and things like that. But if you want to start playing with 23 AI and vectors and all that, definitely this is a good way of accessing it very easily. You've got all the different tools as well, so you can actually come in and do loading data and setting up your database users, and so it provides a very nice interface to that. Okay.
Yeah, that's looking a lot nicer than it used to.
All right, well, that was it. If you have any questions or anything, just let us know.
All right, so I have a poll there. 5 of you have responded. If you take a minute, you could do that. Is there any questions for Steve there? in the meantime. And yeah, so the agenda was that we might go over for the Data Studio feedback. So we'll have a minute to go through this survey feedback here. And then we'll go into the Data Studio. So here's the results of what everyone said. So use case, most ADW, most important reasons for using it, performance, converged database features. That's pretty much all of them, so that's good to see, and none company mandated, so we're happy with that. I can't see what the other is. If anyone wants to comment, open your microphone and tell us. But for the primary use case, most important this year, let's see what that is. Backup, okay? Interesting, and select AI. Does anyone else like to comment on the feedback questions or anything else on Autonomous Database?
Yeah, hi Laura, this is Ricardo. I just wanted to thank both Steve and on the presentations. They were very, very nice and very well presented, all the things. So just want to ask you for their presentations because they have a couple of use cases where I might use some of the ideas and features that Steve shared today.
Okay, so use cases, that came up earlier in the GenAI poll
Yes.
as well. So use cases, okay, we'll take that feedback, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll close the poll down and, other one, okay. Another comment?
No, sorry, I was saying just you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll close the poll down and thank you, Steve, and I will hand over to Vishal now, and I will run the survey that we came up with as well. So Vishal, would you like to introduce yourself and the team?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. My name is Vishal Singh. I'm a product manager on the Autonomous Database team. I specifically focus on Data Studio, and these are the pre-built data tools. They come with ADB, and which allow you to work with data, loading data, transforms, sharing, catalog, etc. I have many folks from my team. Do you want me to actually, Laura? I'm sure folks know them, but really quickly, folks, you want to introduce yourself really quickly, just so that
Yeah, if you mention the names, I think, since we're pushed for time.
Awesome. So we have Raghu, we have AA, we have Ashish from the team. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I launched the poll. Shall we run through that first, or if everyone could put their answers in while Vishal is chatting? And he was asking if you could identify yourself, if you're still on, or if you hear this, if you'd identify what company you're from and if you edit your name in the participation list. There's 6 questions there on Data Studio.
Yes. So while we are doing that, I think this is focused on the Data Studio tools. They're broadly 2 questions, right? One, we would love to hear from you how your teams have been using these tools, what's working, what could be better, and things like that, right? Like I think that would be one part. The second part would be if there are other tools, right, which you may be using or your teams may be using in your data engineering practices, loading tools. There are a lot of examples written out there, right? Like you may be using Fivetran, you may be using Informatica, etc. we would also love to hear, more from you about which use cases you're using, which tools, so that we can actually take that feedback back into improving these data studio tools. So broadly, I think those are the two main topics. So yeah, please fill in the survey and would love to hear feedback from you if you have any.
So does anyone have some comments for Vishal and team? I think we have maybe about 50% filled out the survey now, so I'm going to end it and share the results. We've lost a few people on the hour, unfortunately. I'm going to end the poll and share the results so that you can see that. So, no one's using it out of the people that answered. What have you tried? Insights and the catalogs. What do you currently use? Mostly Oracle for that, and analytics tools, a mixture. Data share use cases. Yep, so data share is going to be used. And I can look at the details of number 6 there. So I guess, Michelle, do you want to go through? I mean, so there's no one in this call that's using it.
Yeah.
So you want to address that?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I think not super surprising. I think these a lot of these tools and innovations are more recent. If you refer back to what was presented earlier about lots of innovations around data transforms, a lot of work going on in terms of file format, Iceberg, etc. So there are a lot of capabilities which are in these tools right now. I also want to refer back to the previous survey which happened in ADB. It was interesting that all of you are using Autonomous Data Warehouse, right? And so there may be a possibility that there is a lack of awareness that Autonomous Data Warehouse actually has these built-in tools which the data engineering teams could actually do. These are self-serviceable tool, very cost-effective, no need, doesn't require any setup, etc. So there could be an awareness aspect in here. And again, if you and your teams are interested, we would love to follow up with the presentation on what these tools are, like how to get started, etc. Right? I think that would be my main, suggested next step. But also, if as per the previous survey on ADW being used by 100% of customers, everybody has top of mind things like analytics or data or AI. I think it would be very useful for the teams to try out these tools and send us feedback on what's working and what could be better.
So does anyone that's still on have any comment to make about that? Would that be helpful? You're interested in Data Studio, or is there other reasons that you're not using it?
Questions, which would be the again, an awareness issue I have is this tool, Data Studio, how does it compare? Maybe we are past the hour, so not sure how much time do you have for this, but how does this tool compare against other, say, ETL tools like say Data Stage or Informatica or any other similar tools that were already mentioned in the there in the poll? Because I may have a use case for that, but again, I would need to know more about the tool and which use cases are applicable to it.
Yeah. No, of course, I think this may require a separate meeting where we actually can deep dive into these tools, their capabilities, etc. But overall, I think these are quite mature tools. They are able to provide as you mentioned, like ETL capabilities, which are on par with ODI and like other tools which you mentioned. But I think it may require just double clicking, understanding like, the specific use case you may have. And that is the reason why, we basically are reaching out to hear from you that, hey, try these tools and please give us feedback if you feel that, there is anything missing or anything could be improved. But overall, I think they are tools which should work for majority of your ETL use cases.
Awesome. So thank you, Vishal. And I would ask if you can get in touch with Laura and send me a few links about this product and maybe mark a meeting to further discuss this.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. We'll follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So any further comments on the 2 and 3 results? Michelle, on the insights and catalogs use or the integration usage? And the analytics tools looks pretty normal to me, right?
Yeah, I think they're quite standard, no surprises. I think, very typical for customers to load their data from variety of like sources, right? Local files, object stores. We support like, catalogs, AWS catalog, etc. And then you could transform them to, to your needs. As I mentioned or was mentioned in the conversation call earlier, that we use data transform built over ODI, so has same capabilities. And then you can use the built-in analytic views, insights tools, or like really connect any analytic tool of your choice, right? And which is what we see: OAC, Power BI, Tableau, those top 3. Yeah.
All right, I'm moving on to the question 5 that I added in there. Data, I find that quite interesting. You're already using Oracle in a data sharing way, like object store, like most of you are doing that. Do you find that the data share that we've implemented in ADB will be useful going forward? Does anyone get any comment on that? Or will you continue using what you already have? Any comments? Vishal, do you have any comment on that area?
Yeah, I think one comment I would have is we've seen data sharing use cases from customers like really being a big focus area. We're doing a lot of investments, innovations in that space. So again, would love to hear more. Reach out to me, reach out to Laura and others to try it out, like what we have, provide us feedback. So that we can make sure that like, the data sharing work which we are doing, those innovations really work for your use case.
Okay, and what other features? Yeah, nothing, no other features. So that's the end of the questions then. So do we have anything else to add from either side?
Yeah, I think I would just go and reiterate, I think sort of my offer of like, if your teams are not using Data Studio, we'd love to meet you and your teams, provide an overview, actually demo some of the capabilities which we have, so that you can try them out. And then we can actually get more, specific feedback on your context, your use cases. Because I think these tools are actually fantastic. They are available for your teams to use right away, which I think goes a long way, right? So please do let us know if a meeting would help or like, certain things. We would actually give some links to Laura, which she can share with you. but a meeting would probably be better.
All right, thank you. So I think that's it. We did lose a few people on the hour. So we can repeat this again in 6 months if you'd like. And if anyone has any further comments to make, please reach out to me and I'll put everyone in touch. All right, so thank you. If there's nothing
Thanks.
else, anyone, I shall close the call. All right, bye, thank you.